Hello, welcome back to the Cosmic Consciousness series. Today we're going to try and cover chapter 32 and 33. Chapter 32 is the case of J. William Lloyd in his own words. You ask for a brief statement of my life and spiritual evolution. I was born in Westfield, New Jersey, June 4th, 1857. My parents were English and had had but a few months' schooling apiece. My father was a carpenter, my mother a seamstress. My mother was a woman of broad, gentle nature, spiritual, poetic, a great reader. My father was an intense abolitionist. My schooling was scant at a district school. We lived near a great wood. I cared not much for other children, but spent my time with books and the trees. I loved the trees like conscious friends. The disagreeable side of a religion was never shown me. I talked with God when an infant as naturally as with my mother. Some old book on philosophy, I do not know its name, fell into my hands, and I commenced to think to the core. I read the Bible, commentaries, a book on all religions. At 13, I was an atheist, then turned quickly, experienced conversion, and as I read, became Calvinist, Arminian, Swedenborgian. At 15, I was apprenticed to a carpenter, but work failed in 1873, and I became a gardener instead. At 17, I was a leader in prayer meetings, an exhorter, a disputant with ministers on points of orthodoxy. At 18, I went to Trails Hygienic College at Florence, New Jersey, as a working student. All radical questions met me here, and the woman who became my wife. Trail died, the college failed. I went to Kansas as a pioneer, was a herder, a homesteader, married in 1879, acted as hygienic physician for my neighbors, read the Boston Index and Theodore Parker, and became a member of the Free Religious Association. 3 years drought drove me from Kansas to a sanitarium in Benton, Iowa, where I was assistant. Became an agnostic, read Ingersoll and the Scientists, joined a hygienic colony in Tennessee in January 1883, again a pioneer in the woods, accepted Carl Heingen's democracy, and grew more confirmed in writing poems which I had first commenced just before going to Kansas. Accepted free love, which I had fought for years. Colony failed, and I went to another similar one in Florida. Many spiritualists here. Read Tucker's Liberty and became an enthusiastic anarchist. Orange grower, farm laborer, and pioneer. Colony and work failed and went to Palatka. Poultry farmer. Wife died in September 1888. After nearly a decade of most happy married life, came north to old home with 2 little children and became a professional nurse. Here found more books and read the poets Emerson, Whitman, Thoreau, Spencer, Darwin, Carpenter, William Morris. I loved the transcendentalists but did not understand them very well. I lived mostly in poetry and sociologic science. As to my illumination, I was going to New York City one morning in January 1897 on a train to do some hospital work. I was reading Carpenter. It was a beautiful winter morning. I think I was near the Bay Bridge or on it when the thought came. There was no particular sensation except that something beautiful and great seemed to have happened to me, which I could only describe in terms of light. Yet it was purely mental, but everything looked different to me. I went about the city that day calm, but glad and uplifted. The thing I remember most was a wonder how soon the sensation or impression would leave me. I was latently skeptical and thought it a temporary inspiration, like that of a poet. But days, weeks, months passed, and I found the shoot which had broken ground that winter morning was ever growing, strengthening, and changing all the scenery of my life. I continually questioned and tested, and at last, after a year's trial, began to write. All the early part of the book was written at night, while I nursed and guarded a lunatic boy whose yells, laughs, curses, and filthy jests made the room ring as I wrote. Yet I wrote easily, swiftly, without any conscious cerebration, and with a sort of wonder at the words I wrote as if they had no connection with me. Part of the book was written in the following summer, when at home, part of it in the winter of 1899-1900, while getting ready for the press, but always with the same sensations of ease and inspiration. And still, when I read the book, it seemed to me something apart, in whose construction I had had no hand. As to how I felt when I received the divine thought, you have yourself most accurately described the symptoms on pages 10 and 11 of your pamphlet. With the intellectual illumination comes an indescribable moral elevation, an intense and exalted joyfulness, and along with this a sense of immortality, not merely a belief in a future life, that would be a small matter, but a consciousness that the life now being lived is eternal, death being seen as a trivial incident which does not affect its continuity. Further, there are annihilation of the sense of sin and an intellectual competency not simply surpassing the old, but on a newer and higher plane. Also, many of the marks of arahatship as taught by Buddha describe accurately the feeling. What proves J. William Lloyd to be a cosmic consciousness case is not so much the above account of himself, although that could hardly have been written without some such an experience as illumination as the volume 110A which he produced after the occurrence in question. This volume, which contains overwhelming evidence of the fact, is easily accessible and will doubtless be read by every person who feels an interest in the subject. The oncoming of cosmic consciousness in this case was very similar to the fact in the case of Edward Carpenter. There was a clearly marked moment when the light began to break through, but illumination came gradually. There was no subjective light. There was a well-marked intellectual illumination and moral elevation, but the cosmic vision, the Brahmic splendor of the great cases does not appear to have been present. If not, this cannot be said to be a complete case, and still J. Williams Lloyd's book shows the most excellent insight into the cosmic order. It must be remembered that illumination that comes gradually may be as complete as that which comes instantly. Why there should be such difference in the awakening in different cases cannot at present be explained. As far as our facts will carry us, it would appear that the cases in which the cosmic sense makes its appearance fully grown, instantly and as it were in a flash, are those in which there is marked a subjective light, such cases as that of Dante, Yeats, Paul, Pascal, and others. When, on the contrary, the new sense comes more gradually, there may be no subjective light, as in the cases of Carpenter and Lloyd. It seems tolerably certain that with illumination there occurs actual physical molecular rearrangement somewhere in the cerebral centers, and that it is this molecular rearrangement which, when considerable and sudden, gives rise to the phenomenon of the subjective light. Alright, now chapter 33. Horace Traubel. Horace Traubel was born December 19th, 1858, and was therefore in his 31st year at time of his first illumination. His experience is here given in his own words. It is all of it full of interest, but perhaps the most significant thing about it is the manner of intelligence of it was received by Walt Whitman himself, whose matter-of-fact simple words, "I knew it would come to you," he said, carry a depth of meaning quite out of the common. H.T. tells the story of his awakening in this colloquial and direct way in answer to the inquiries of the editor. He says, "You are quite familiar with the path of my spiritual development, with the course taken by my mental self in arriving at its present state. You know I have come to my own, whatever that may be, mostly by immediate contact with experience rather than through books, though I have read in books of the most miscellaneous character and at one period in appalling numbers. But somehow the scholar in me never seems to have obscured the man. I suppose my intenser earlier reading was in Emerson, Carlyle, Hugo, and whatever else I would get hold of having to do with the world of myth and the anti-Christian scriptures of the race. I do not seem to have known a time when I have not read Leaves of Grass. But previous to May 1889, I do not seem to have gotten, in that sense, final grasp of its mystery, which now imparts to its primary and supernatural significance." May 1889. Then again, 2 years later, 1891. A third time, 1893 or 4, on the historic night, historic to me, that is, when circumstance made me the spokesman of the dissentient group of ethicists in Philadelphia, on the occasion of the split of the Ethical Society there. May 1889. That overwhelming night, as I leaned over the railing of the ferry boat, lost this world for another, and in the anguish and joy of a few minutes, saw things heretofore withheld from me revealed. Those who have had such an encounter will understand what this means, others will not, or will perhaps only realize it by intimation. I could not separate the physical and spiritual of that moment. My physical body went through the experience of a disappearance in spiritual light. All severe lines in the front of phenomena relaxed. I was one with God. Love, the universe, arrived at last face to face with myself. I was sensible of the peculiar moral and mental disturbances and readjustments. There was an immediateness to it all, an indissoluble unity of the several energies of my being in one force. I was no more boating it on a river than winging it in space or taking star leaps, a traveler from one to another on the peopled orbs. While I stood there, the boat had gotten to the slip and was almost ready to go out again. A deckhand who knew me came up and tapped me on the shoulder. "Don't you intend on going off the boat?" he asked, and he added when I faced him and said, "Yes. You look wonderfully well and happy tonight, Mr. Traubel." I did not see Walt till the next day evening. In the meantime, I had lived through 24 hours of ecstasy mixed with some doubts as to whether I had not had a crack in the skull and gone mad rather than fallen under some light and made a discovery. But the first words Walt addressed to me when I sallied into his room were reassuring. Horace, you have the look of great happiness on your face tonight. Have you had a run of good luck? I sat down and tried in a few words to indicate that I had had a run of good luck, though not perhaps the good luck he had had in mind for me at the moment. He did not seem at all surprised at what I told him, merely remarking as he put his hand on my shoulder and looked into my eyes. I knew it would come to you. I suggested, I have been wondering all day if I am not crazy. He laughed gravely. No, sane. Now at last you are sane. It was a month before the immediate effect of this experience wore off. The reflex effect was of course fixed. I can say now, writing 1901, that from that day to this, I have never known one moment of despair concerning my spiritual relations to man and the universe. I have my earth troubles and my earth foibles, but the essential faith is adamantine. I have never had any suspicion of immortality. The glimpse of that minute and of the repeated experiences on the two after occasions mentioned above into the eternal law left no blot or qualification. I had often said before, in speaking of Whitman, making in a way a true guess, Whitman's notion of immortality is not one of logic, but it is pictorial. He does not believe in immortality, he sees it. Many times, Whitman has said to me regarding that explanation, it is every word true. You hit the nail on the head. Now I knew better than I had before, not only better, but in a way I could not have known before, what I myself meant when I used the expression Whitman sees. I see around and through phenomena. Phenomena is never a wall or a veil. I have been able to do my work as never before. It has brought me friends and the cheer of sympathetic greetings from all parts of the world. One feature of my writing I ought to mention. I think I told you long ago that I become in effect automatic when I am engaged in any serious composition. I do not seem to write. The writing seems done through me. I take up my pen and hardly know what I write. After I have written, I am often surprised at the things I have said. They are as new to me as to any reader. All the writing which has brought me any returns, congratulations, has been done in that mood. On the night of the ethical split, I was in a position which forced me to be the main spokesman of the Party of Freedom. I made a speech upon which my enemies even more than my friends congratulated me. Yet when I got on my feet on the floor and plunged into talk, I was instantly immersed in the strange light which had visited me on the first experience, and simply uttered without thought or reason, formally speaking, the words of the mightier power that possessed me. I have found since that on occasions of crisis I have merely to throw myself back again on this resource to discover that every strength, spiritually speaking, it imparted once it imparts again. In my very busy life, which has its temporal distresses, this is more than a balance and bank and contributes more than any ephemera of material prosperity could towards my victories. In fact, it is the first and last letter of my power. When the little affairs of every day seem most mixed up, most to be past solution, I am sure finally to make my escape by the avenue of these ameliorating revelations. Not once has the Spirit deserted me, not once has the light in some degree of its radiance, not always of course in full power, failed to appear. The difference it makes in one's life, is the difference between preparation and consummation. On the occasion of my second experience, April 1891, which was not outwardly momentous, I found that my initial self-suspicion, my question, am I unbuilt or built, did not reappear. If you take my verse Illumination, and a great deal of H.T.'s verse and prose written since that year, and try to get it statistically languaged, you will find that I have expressed a series of experiences of profound significance to all who have been similarly blessed. I find that my members are no longer at war with each other. When I was a youngster, I read my way vigorously and sympathetically back, especially into Oriental literature of the religious class blazed the path for the spirit. Wow. After 1889, a hiatus and such reading have intervened. I found myself driven into that old world again to review my original impressions. The new light had made my voyage easier and more richly endowed its fruits. Once I felt that religions were all of them religions of despair. Now I saw that no religion despairs, that all religions, before it becomes and as soon as it ceases to be an affair of institutions, resolves itself essentially into light and immortality. Excuse me, I'm about to throw some gay ass shit. I should Ow, my back. Ow. I should perhaps say that it has invariably happened that someone, and sometimes many persons, have commented to me and felicitated me upon my appearance upon the occasions of my direct contact with what I have grown to call my subliminal self. This may mean much or nothing, but no one could live through what I do at such periods and not in some way outwardly give it witness. You have said to me, state this thing in plain prose, but how can I? I could never state it in the prose that would be understood by one who has not shared my sensations. I could never state it in words which would not make it, if you please, prose to those who can enter collaterally into the channels of his august revelation. After asking you, how can I have shown you how I could. Some things I have said may seem to savor of egotism, but they are simply candid. I'm not measuring myself as a genius or an idiot, but as a simple third person whose word and career must be to himself absolute law. I have written you this memorandum impulsively with no attempt to dress it up, if indeed, until now it is done, and now I have read it with any actual understanding of what my pen would commit me to or confess. The following poem was written by Horace Trouble shortly after his illumination, and of course strictly belongs here. The nights, the days, hold me in thrall. Toils of men and women drag my faith to the earth. Furrowed with pain, the casual cares, I long, I look, I reach forth to life. Release, escape. Shall I speak of the door swung wide, of the unbarred gates? After the vigil, I step across the border line, I take my place with the pioneers. Have I met the hour patiently without fear at the portal? Now is my name called, now the lip of my love has spoken. Do I mistake you, O divine signaler? Is it after all some other soul that is hailed? Myself is the answer. There's that in my heart responds, meeting the call with equal voice, establishing forever the unspeakable bond. Bond that does not bind, bond that frees, bond that discovers and bestows. Look, I am flushed with inexhaustible possession. The old measures vanish and I am expanded to infinite sweep. O world, not dead to you, only seeing you, knowing you at last. Mixed with countless words, knowing with you your companions also. O year, not dead to you, only seeing you, knowing you at last, mixed with all time, untangling the knotted thread. O world, O queer, before birth seeing birth, after life seeing life. The infinite blue heaven's fond eye opens upon me, O voice mastering me, making me too master. My ears close, I hear the syllables fall. Waves on shores of the farthest worlds, waves on shores of the day. I wish the clouds part, O face, O face, O face. Face smiling upon me, smiling me wings, buoyant beyond, flamboyant beyond, the discarded, cheapened present. You too, O present, still remaining, duly visiting my heart, not forbidden, yet yielding the place supreme. I am all eye, O God, you are all speech. Celestial sight and voice, none took my deep. Color and tone, warring no more, in the boundless blue uplifted. Whose hand touches me, my brow, my breast, my cock, my unasking hand, leading me out of self to self? Divine form, mother, father, sex, only now standing revealed, the union irreversible. Divine form, I made whole in you, the elements diverse here blended. This minute, this minute grown infinite. The far world spread before me, the endless drift of shaft of my soul, the long stretch of faces all splattered and lit by the divine sun. Or swift or slow or early or late, the lines not anywhere broken, all equally sustained, swept in the same destiny on sea and land of life. The peak lit for all, the triumph inevitable. Oh, my soul, look yet again. There too are you, a figure in the panorama. On your brow, the dawn has set its beauty as a beam. Here with me, there not with me. Death fills with me its abundance. What is this flood overcoming body and sense? I feel the walls of my skull crack, the berries part, the sun flood enter. Love, lore, not lost, only magnified, floating eternal seas of essence, before and behind births and deaths, spiritual gravitation, the emergence ever more expanding. O soul, have I lost you or found you? Found, the faultless circle born at last to you, after the waiting years. Far arrows behind, far arrows ahead, the simple few years I finger, shafts from the central sun, speeding for fuller fruition the orbs of space. Back to the first words of speech. On to the last utterance of seers. My soul, knowing its own, wrapped in its protean habit, catches the perfect song. God, I'm circled, I'm drunk with the influx of life. Wheeled in your orbit, giving the word I would speak, it must withhold. Leaving you, oh my brother, each one to say it for your sin. Brothers, worlds, I greet you. The wheel turns, the boundless prospect opens. All complicate the light-bearing limitlessly the burdens of all. Do you think that you are missed? Not at all. That the large heart beats not for you, that somewhere on the road you must faint and die? Obviously. Strength will be given for all your need, and the weakest, when the night comes, which is the day, will greet the king, a giant in stature and grace. Now the immortal years, the ceaseless round, realize the doubts shorn of wing and foot, the farthest or handed foot or whatever, the farthest league nearest, and the multiplied infinities choking here in my breast. Oh, my questioner, you do not suspect me, you suspect yourself. Tomorrow, seeing yourself, you will see me, and the illumined spirit passing the portal, God-grown, will hail me proudly. Had we no other writings by this man, these lines alone to all who can understand them, and they are as clear as day from the point of view of this volume, would be proof of illumination. But we have much else. A series of writings in prose and verse extending over the last 10 years gives us more evidence than is needed. Then there is something else to say. Horace Trouble, as he intimates himself in his own words above, belongs with Blake, Yeats, Bayman, Swedenborg, and others, in the class of what may be called automatic writers. These men give their inspiration free way. They drop the reins on his neck and let the horse go. What they write under the divine impulse, for those who can follow their thought, is divine. Those who cannot, as Paul says, of course Paul would say, shoot in their connection, foolishness, just like the rest of that book. Perhaps all these men write automatically, but in the case of some of them, the expression as it flows from the cosmic sense, or is afterwards modified by the self-conscious intellect, is more intelligible to the natural man than in the case of others. In not one of them does the meaning lie on the surface. They all call for and demand long-continued and thoughtful reading. Whitman and Paul are just as unintelligible as Bayman and Swedenborg, until the right point of view is reached, although Whitman, for his part, wrote his whole life, returning upon his poems, lingering long, in order to render them absorbable by the race. Horace Trouble has not escaped the curse of his tribe, unintelligibility. But in spite of it, he has produced his effect. And this is the strangest thing of all, that it should be possible for a man to speak or write what cannot be understood, but to do it in such a divine way that his words shall be revered and remembered through the ages. The Shakespeare sonnets have never been understood and yet are accepted for what they really are, a revelation. Horace Trouble has many readers who understand him, and even those who do not comprehend him fully are impressed by his personality, through which streams unmistakably the divine light. Well, I don't. Y'all have a great day, brothers and sisters.